Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the meeting. We're just going to wait for a few more people to join, and then we'll go ahead and get started. And just make sure you're muted. And
Team Kentucky. Team Kentucky.
hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. Haley's letting some people in now, but we're going to go ahead and get started. So welcome to the Solar for All kickoff meeting. I'm so glad that we could finally get this on the books. We're just going to go over some brief introduction and the overall overview of the program, and then our status of the grant, some of our planning period goals, and then we'll just move on to some discussion, questions, things like that. So I'm Emma Strong. If I haven't talked to you or met you, I'm the project manager here at OEP for Solar for All. And we have here Haley, who is also in our office. She helps out a little bit. She's just going to be moderating the chat and letting folks in, making sure everything goes smoothly. And then Carol is our quality assurance manager for Solar for All. She's part of the program. I'll go more in depth on that in a little bit. But yeah, and Kenya cannot be here, at least I don't believe she can, due to the overnight weather. So she's monitoring outages and things like that at the EOC right now. But yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. I see most people that were registered are here. So about OEP on the whole, our missions to utilize all of Kentucky's energy resources for the betterment of the Commonwealth while protecting and improving our environment. We always focus on energy affordability, education, and security with all of our projects. I will be sharing these slides, so you'll be able to access our website link there for more information on us. And then we do also align with the Team Kentucky's mission to build better with stronger infrastructure, increase economic development opportunities, and a more resilient community and families. And we also align with Governor Beshear's energy strategy, KYE3, which highlights the importance of diversifying our energy landscape, maintaining economic development, and protecting our environment. So we will go ahead and talk about our plan here. So we have what we call like a 5-point plan with, I think, a little extras at the end there. But here's our big 5 points. We have our LIHEAP and community solar subscription plan, or our aspect of this program, which we're going to identify those LIHEAP households that are already saving through that program. They're already income verified, and we're going to subscribe them to existing community solar. This will lower their bills. The overall goal for Solar for All is 20% savings, but this specific aspect of the program, you could see anywhere from 20 to 70% is what we're expecting. We also want to do a community solar resilience hub demonstration. This is focused on increasing resilience during weather events, which is obviously kind of a very recent subject. And this will be a larger array on a community building with battery storage that we can, our siting process for that is going to focus on folks who are on electric dependent medical devices. And we plan to subscribe some folks to that solar, and also it can act as a place for folks to come and receive aid, charge their devices after the weather event. We also have the weatherization assistance program and solar aspect. So again, identifying those already income verified homes that are weatherized and have those upgrades for solar ready to go. We want to add solar to those to make them even more energy efficient and affordable for those families. There is also the opportunity to serve some multifamily housing in this aspect of the plan. We'll go into that a little later. That is kind of something further down the road for us, maybe in years 3 or 4. We also want to uplift solarized campaigns and provide technical assistance to local governments to help simplify the interconnection process and offer reliable solar information and protect folks from scams and bad actors in the solar industry. And to uplift the solarized campaigns, we will help them utilize their bulk procurement strategies to reduce the solar installation cost. And then finally, the most important aspect of our program, it's the largest funding pot. It is the disaster housing, which we're going to put solar and storage on those homes in Eastern and Western Kentucky to help with their resilience post-tornado and flooding disasters that we have seen recently and in past years as well. And again, this is a 5-year program. So we have 5 years. We're in year 1, which is our planning period. We plan to get out of the planning period on a couple of these projects, not all, just because we want to take some more time to develop some of them. So are there any, I'll stop here. Are there any questions on that? That might be some new information to people that might be very redundant, and I've probably given that spiel to people before. But if you have a question, go ahead, and if you want to unmute or put it in the chat. Maybe program. Oh, okay. All right. I'm not seeing anything, but if you do have a question, we'll be constantly looking. So feel free at any time to raise your hand or throw something in the chat or the Q&A function as well. Alrighty. So this is kind of the extra bits that I was talking about. We want to bulk up the workforce in this solar industry. We know that, there are some worries about meeting the demand for installing all this solar. So we want to push this out as fast as we can. This is something that we actually can do pretty early on in year 1. So we want to uplift with work-ready scholarships and apprenticeship stipends. I'll go more into what those programs might look like in a little bit. And then on here, we also have best practices for munis. And that, again, probably won't be year 1, but is also very important. So this is our breakdown of the budget here. LIHEAP and community solar is 10 million. And then we have the disaster housing and solar storage, you can see, is the largest at almost $26 million. And then the weatherization plus solar is 13.5. And then the resilience hub demonstration is 1 million. We plan to only do one of those, so that's why that number is a little bit reduced. And then the solarizing community education is at 700,000. And then we've got workforce at almost 500,000 total, or 500 million total, or 5 million total. I'm so sorry. With the work ready scholarships at 2.5 million, apprenticeship stipends at 1.2 million, and then working with area technology centers at 1.125 million. And so all of those together will kind of be our workforce bucket. And we also have our technical assistance, the best practices for munis at 400,000. And then, so more about what EPA is requiring and kind of where we're at. Just to give some context before I go into our status, we are mostly working on, or we just finished working on, our QMP and our QAP, as they call it. The QMP is our quality management plan, and this document is to kind of create office-wide quality-related policies and procedures, and they call it Environmental Information Operations, or EIO, which is basically data collection. And this is something that Department of Environmental Protection has. When you receive EPA funding, you have to have this over your whole office or your whole agency or entity in order to create a QAP, which is a quality assurance project plan. And this is slightly different because it's more project specific. So every project is going to collect data differently because of the type of data they're collecting. So for Solar for All, we're going to be collecting things like installed capacity, energy savings, bill savings, the locations of the homes and even the community solar that might be installed or that we're subscribing from, emission reductions, battery storage, and the number of households we impact. And so all of that is sort of, it's not typical for what EPA sees in their programs. They typically see water samples, air samples, things like that to measure changes in the environment and pollution reduction and things like that. For us, it's a little bit different. And so that's why the QAP is so important. And we plan to provide a lot of guidance for our partners on how exactly they will be expected to qualify or to comply with our QAP and our QMP. So for those who are worried about that, it's not too detailed. It's not like sending things to a lab and having procedures for that and all of that. So our status in December, we received our new notice of award after several months of workshopping our budget and work plan. So this allowed us to sort of move forward with the contracting process and really enter the planning period. So right now we're working on drafting contracts that we are able to do in year one. In our work plan, we stated that we would get out of the planning period early in year one on disaster housing projects, which we will be working with Kentucky Housing Corporation and Public Protection Cabinet as they're doing the work in Eastern and Western Kentucky. And so we plan to get that out as soon as we can after the QMP and the QAP are approved, and then we go through the state contracting process. And then we're going to do workforce stuff. Midwest Renewable Energy Association is who we're partnering with for that. They're going to provide training for, we want to target first year the folks working for the affordable housing developers and working on disaster housing. And so that will be available hopefully relatively soon. We don't need QAP or QMP approval for that. It's only for construction. We are currently also drafting an application process for potential apprenticeship partners. That will be kind of a call for application, like a letter of interest thing that we'll be sending out. You guys will be notified well in advance of that. And so, yeah, like I said, we're waiting on our quality management plan and quality assurance plan approval. We don't have a timeline on it. We did try to push to get that expedited as quickly as possible. So fingers crossed it's before a month or so too long. We submitted it 2 weeks ago. So, and then the EPA must review all subawardees that we choose. So that's another process that might inhibit our ability to start as soon as possible, but we're gonna work through and get that expedited as soon as we can. We will have guidance, like I said, on data collection requirements and how to track and report all of that if you're granted a subaward. And our grant partners will be required to use our reporting portal and document all compliance and data collection for each project completed. And so if you're interested, you can shoot me an email and we can have a meeting about it, but we will need you to be registered as a vendor in our state procurement system. We need you to be registered with the Secretary of State and have that information documented. And we'll also need a nonprofit status letter. We prefer 501c3 if you're curious. And all grant partners will be also required to complete our compliance training relating to Davis-Bacon and potential BABA compliance with the multifamily side of things. So if you're interested in that, there is that hurdle. NEPA and other state requirements like floodplain compliance. Any questions here? Oh, there's one in the Q&A, I think. This is year 1 of 5, Dan. The year 1 is a planning period, so we have until September to work on this project and plan everything out. LG&E requires personal ownership of solar installations.
Emma, hi, this is Steve Rickish. If I can throw in a question.
Yeah, for sure.
Or clarification. It sounds like the approach you're taking fundamentally is to try and turn the Kentucky Housing Corporation, into a solar installer of some scale. I think when we looked at the figures with you before, we can be looking at 200, 300, 400 installs a year, many including kind of batteries. Do you have concerns that that's a very significant learning curve when it would normally take somebody in the industry 4 or 5 years to pick up the engineering, technical, equipment approval skills, the engineering kind of piece? How do you see that happening?
I mean, Kentucky Housing can also procure solar installers if they feel they need to use funds on that. we've kind of discussed with Kelly the options and what the workload looks like for her. She's also getting some folks trained. Yeah, I want to have more conversations with how she feels about it before I really speak to it too much. Kentucky Housing Corporation, we've been a little bit busy with the QMP and the QAP, so we haven't had a discussion in a little while. But from when we last spoke, we've discussed the option of maybe procuring solar installers.
Yeah, and yeah,
And I know
having
you're worried about having
yeah, I mean,
enough
just been through
solar
that
installers.
procurement process with a few cities, there really are only 2 or 3 installers in the state of scale who could help with these projects, and they're fairly fully booked. So to
Yeah.
me, there's a significant skills gap if we're turning around and saying, look, we've got 300 to 500 jobs to do a year. That would challenge the largest installer we have in the state now, let alone anybody starting from scratch.
Yeah, I mean, it's the workforce side of things is going to be a challenge, I think, but we're going to do what we can with what we've got. And, um, we have funding for apprenticeships and things like that. And we're hoping that with that, we can increase interest in working in the solar community and try to build the workforce over time. But I mean, it's a valid concern, and we're having internal discussions on that, and we're happy to have a more in-depth meeting on workforce. We do plan to kind of move forward with these meetings and have them be reoccurring monthly for the first little bit, to really nail down um, what we want these programs to look like, before we go all in on it. So.
At this stage, who's giving you the kind of ground level knowledge and reality, yeah, on as you do this kind of planning? Have you got somebody aside of the Midwest Renewable Energy Association who knows the state, knows the installers, knows the workforce landscape, so that you can work with knowledge of what's going on, or is that something that's to come?
I mean, I would say that right now it's Kenya doing, with what she knows about the landscape and her relationships in the industry. But I mean, I think that things can evolve, and we're open to folks reaching out and having more discussion about that. But we don't
Have
really
you
have a
actually had
dedicated
any?
partner.
Have you had any conversations with the solar industry in the state basically say, here's what we're thinking. Do you agree with these training approaches? How might you staff and kind of resource something like this?
Yeah, we talked to Kentucky Solar Energy Industry Association. Matt was on the call, and they seem concerned, but they seem hopeful, and I don't think that they seem as worried about that aspect, from our conversation that we had a few months ago. I mean, things, I guess they could have changed, or maybe the conversation wasn't as in depth, but I don't think that from who we've talked to at KCI, I don't think they really
Okay.
see a huge barrier. But again, I mean, everyone has different perspectives on the industry, and so they're all welcome. And yeah,
Okay,
so.
thanks.
Yeah. All right, I'll read this one more from. Is there someone with their hand raised? Yes, John, you can go ahead.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, whoever was just speaking, I kind of want to agree with them on this. It just seems like a very big lift as opposed to I've done some kind of partnering, uh, brokering between public-private partnerships on services like this, and it seems to have gone pretty well. Has that been investigated at all to where you're working with private companies to get your folks trained and to fulfill what the mission is here? Does that make
That kind of
sense?
makes things, yeah, yeah.
And I was
The
just gonna
public,
jump in for a second.
yeah, Carol.
Yeah. I was just gonna reinstate everyone. We are in the 1 year planning period. We are still working to develop everything. The status of this funding has been in question quite a bit with recent administration changes. So right now we are trying to do everything we can to hold on to the money. We're trying to do everything we can to get approval to spend the money because right now, I mean, we can talk all we want, but we can't do anything until we have approvals. So our initial plan is, like Emma said, we're going to try to develop workforce and we're going to deploy disaster solar and storage. And we know that there are a lot of kinks to be worked out, but again, we're in the 1 year planning period and we're trying to a lot of the EPA's requirements right now. So there's more to it than just, you know, we are going to rely on you all to kind of guide us on this stuff, but it's just right now we're trying to work on a lot of behind the scenes stuff as well.
Yeah, I think that's good input. It's the whole doing what you can with what we've got and the timeline we have to work within, and any major change to our work plan or budget really puts this funding into a tricky situation where they're going to have a lot of eyes on it, and it could potentially put it at jeopardy to being, reallocated or reused for something else and by the administration. And so we're really working to try to get some money, doing good work, to show that we're dedicated to this program and we're going to use this money as we said we would and efficiently and all of that. So, but again, this planning period is kind of what this is for. And so as we get deeper into it and have these small group discussions, I think conversations like this are really beneficial to what our program is going to look like. See, we have a couple more. And if you want to go ahead, I'm reading in the chat a little bit.
Hey, I just want to commend you for being proactive and positive and trying to make these programs help the most people, despite the uncertainty out of Washington. So I think you should be commended for that. I think we're all want to be supportive of that for sure. I'm with Solar Alliance. We're one of the many small, mid-sized firms that are happy to work and support that whole workforce and jobs initiative. So my question is simply, as you're still being proactive and getting ahead of the curve, even despite being the planning period, how soon could we potentially see an RFP out at all? Is it possible that by the end of the 2025 there might be one, or should we assume not till 2026? Again, we're just going to be, watching for those projects rolling out and a chance to work.
Yeah, thank you. I think we could see something at this year. I don't want to put a super serious timeline on it just because we don't know how the state process is going to go. That can take quite a while to get our contracts through. And again, planning this might take a little bit longer. We anticipated getting out of the planning period early, but again, that might not be the case if we feel we have more work to do, but we would really like to get some money out this year. So I think you could anticipate seeing at least some money going out, and eventually an RFP could be late this year, early next year. Tentatively, I'm going to add as my.
Thank you.
Okay, Scott, yeah. The earliest that the dollars would be available, probably end of this year. George, I will email you about this, the LG&E community solar. There's some things that Kenya and I have been talking about on that front. I think Kenya would be better to answer that question than I am. I'm not as much of a utility expert as she is. So Mary, we'll do year by year contracts. So Mary said in the chat, getting money out, what might that look like? Dollars up front or by reimbursement? We do year-long contracts, and it's similar to Mary, we worked with you. Like you invoice us, we'll reimburse. I think it would probably go through KHC with you guys, but yeah, it would look similar. Sameta. Can you explain the urban solar program, Sameta, if you're able to turn your mic on?
Sure. Yeah, I think you had mentioned that there was going to be, was it $700,000 for solarized programs and targeted to urban areas? So could you describe what the rollout of that will be? Will there be an RFP or how?
So we're still kind of deciding. We're working on that. Kenya and I have discussed maybe call for applications, direct partnership. I mean, we've had discussions with you guys at Solar Energy Society. I think that will be more determined. That's not going to be as much of a year one activity. It's probably going to come a little later because we want to focus on getting the first 2 contracts out with disaster and workforce, but we can definitely have more conversations about that in future meetings. But
okay, thank you.
Yeah. Alrighty. I think that's all the questions I've got right now. Let me check. Yeah. Okay. So we've kind of already talked about some initial actions for planning period just through the questions, but to reiterate, we really want to work with you guys and other stakeholder groups, in small groups and large group meetings like this. I think my vision for the future meetings is to schedule something reoccurring monthly and maybe having like a theme of sorts where, okay, this meeting we're going to discuss the workforce side of things, and then we're going to look at the apprenticeship side of things, and then we're going to look at disaster housing, east, west, all of that. I think it would be better to narrow it down to have more detailed conversations just with like time limits and things like that. So at the end of this meeting, I'm gonna kind of propose a vote, I guess, on a reoccurring meeting schedule on when we want that, what time slot, that kind of thing. We also want to ensure that we have our systems in place to track compliance and data collection. Their EPA is pretty heavy on collecting all this data and making sure it's quality and storing it very safely. So we're working on a system to house this data, and especially the sensitive data, like addresses, photos of people's homes and things like that, to keep it as safe as we can, that kind of thing. And then we want to work through the state contracting processes and approvals. This can take quite a while for it to go through the Legislative Research Council. We've seen things take a couple of months. And because this is a solar related project, we do anticipate quite a few questions about it. We also want to, like I said, roll out initial funding for disaster housing and workforce related programs in the planning period. And we want to continue to build on our projects and partnerships through this year and into the next year. And so, yeah, I think here's some success stories that we want to highlight. This is what some of the things we could be doing with Solar for All money. We have the River City housing projects in Louisville. We supported this home. These links will be available when we put out the slides, but essentially this is an affordable home that River City Housing retrofitted to be energy efficient. It's passive home. It's got solar on it, so we could be of good use with Solar for All dollars here to add solar to these homes. And then Homes Inc. is doing net zero housing and solar ready housing. And so we plan to utilize that technology and that, kind of new trend out in those high ground communities to install solar on those and uplift all that work they're doing out there. And then we also have the rebates program here in our office, which is in also kind of a planning period, and they're waiting on approval. So tentatively, we're going to leverage that funding to work on disaster housing as well. And yes, thank you, Haley. We do have an inventory, and we do plan to do a little bit more GIS work to identify these homes and these eligible communities out in Eastern and Western Kentucky, and have conversations with those folks on what deploying disaster funds will look like out there. All right, I think I'm out to the questions and discussion. We've had quite a few. If there's any more lingering questions here, I know we have a lot of time left to have some discussion, so feel free. We did do a lot of chatting in the middle, so but if you guys need to contact me, if you have any other questions, that's my email. Oop. And that is our website where you can contact any of us. Carol's email is on there. Kenya's is on there as well. And you can reach out and we can schedule a call, emails, all that stuff. Haley put our Solar for All website link down there. Thank you. And you can get some more information there. Again, if you are not registered on the stakeholder forum, I think there's some folks in here who may not be. If you want to be an identified stakeholder, I have that link. Let me grab it really quick. And this will just allow you to be on our email chain that I send out when we're scheduling meetings or if I have updates about the program. But yeah, that's in the chat for you guys. And then also you can subscribe to our newsletter, which should have some information about Solar for All as things ramp up. Grab that as well. All right, putting that in the chat. Oh, you got it, Haley. Thank you. Okay. Any other questions at all? We can go into scheduling, I guess, another meeting. I was thinking the first Thursday of every month would be good, just as if this time slot works for people. If it does, you can give a thumbs up in the chat. I think that could be a good time slot just to keep it consistent. Okay, Mary, thank you. Can't see everybody, but cool. Okay. I got some movement. I'm going to go ahead and say that the first Thursday from 1 to 2 will be the next meeting. And if there's problems with that, we can change it next time. And I'll be in touch with a recording of this meeting and the slides as well. They'll likely be on our website, but I'll also send it out via the stakeholder. Yeah, I can send that out again. I had some folks say that they weren't a fan of that format, but if that's what you guys would prefer, I'll send out another doodle poll and we can schedule it that way if that's better. Okay. More likes on that one, so we'll do that. All right. Well, if there's no other questions or discussion, then we'll go ahead and end this meeting. Thank you guys for joining. We hope to see you guys at the next one, and I'll be in touch with that poll. Thanks.
Thank you.